My name is Simon Pridham. My background, spent over 20 years in primary education as a teacher, deputy head teacher and executive head teacher for the last 5 years. Within those roles, I've been seconded out to many roles within Welsh Government, Ministers' advisory panels, worked very closely with Leighton Andrews and Hugh Lewis recently as part of the Ministers' Practitioners Panel, part of the National Digital Learning Council. I also sat on the Welsh Government ICT Steering Group recently, which has presented the Minister with a great review of current provision in Wales, and hopefully he'll act upon that and change the curriculum accordingly in due course. From that, I was also seconded to run something called the LIFE programme in Swansea, which has legs not only across Swansea but across Wales. And that came from the success of the school I was teaching and head teacher at, which is called Aspire2Be Primary School, which I'll talk about in more detail. So I'll run through all of that and give you loads of practical ideas. I'll give you loads of things which I've seen on my travels, loads of things which have worked. I haven't got any freebies, sorry. I feel a bit wrong for not doing that. But I will make my presentation available perhaps to Jonathan, and anybody wants it, you're welcome to have it. I can't send it as it is because it's a massive file. There's loads of audio and videos and things in there, but I can send it as a PDF and you can take the bones out of it. Okay, this is my daughter, Ella. She's 3 going on 33. There's no rhyme or reason why I use that photo. I just like it. She's got cucumber on her thumbs there. Don't ask me why, she just does it. And the reason I start with Ella is because I would argue with anybody that Ella, and children like her coming into nursery schools and primary schools today, is a 21st century learner. What do I mean by that? And I actually did a debate on Radio 4 about a month ago. And I had a stand-up argument with Mary Beard. Mary Beard? Yeah. Highly acclaimed academic. And she said that 21st century learners are nonsense. Children are the same learners now as they were in the 19th century, which I couldn't really work out. What I mean by a 21st century learner is from the moment she was born, the moment Ella's eyes opened and her ears started working and she made sense of the world around her, she realised that technology was just there, wasn't it? It's just pervasive. Mobile phones, tablets, PCs, whatever, it's just all about her. So she's had to adapt to that environment and that world like that. So when you hear people saying to you, and you may say to yourself, oh, my 5-year-old or grandparents saying, my granddaughter's a whiz on the phone, on the iPad. She's incredible. Oh, my mother comes to my house, wants me to phone Mensa, because she thinks my daughter's some sort of digital genius. She's not, is she? She's learned how to work her way around the device. She can turn it on, she can find an app, because she's learned the process. She can turn the sound up, she can do what she wants. However, Ella, going to school recently, as a child with 1,000,001 questions to ask her teacher on day one, can't use the device or any devices yet to create content, to help aid her learning, to help her develop her teacher learning style, all those things. So that's where we come in as practitioners. You may hear arguments, you see arguments around the world saying, are we going to need schools in 5 years or 10 years? Is it all going to be virtual? Do we need universities? Of course we do. We do, because as practitioners and teachers, we offer something more than just working our way around technology. And that's why I start with her, because Ella's teacher, a lady called Mrs. Smith, is delightful. She's coming towards the end of her career, and she'd be the first to admit she hasn't got a clue with tablet devices or much around technology. However, the pedagogical knowledge, the social skills, the relationship building skills, everything else she brings to that classroom is invaluable, isn't it? So if Mrs. Smith forms a relationship with the Ellas of this world, a different type of relationship we've had with our learners, and the good schools, institutions around the world who do this, do that well, then when people say there's a revolution in education around technology, that's the key point. And what I'd like to do is show you and try and show you some examples of that, how it works in the next hour or so. So what do I mean by 21st century learner? Well, these are just my thoughts. I truly believe that we should be preparing pupils to be critical thinkers, problem solvers, innovators, communicators, collaborators, to be globally aware, civically engaged, as self-directed learners, information and media literate, financially and economically literate. Technology can help us do all those things. It makes the classroom a global classroom like that, doesn't it? Now, faced with that as practitioners in schools, we've got two options, haven't we? We either run away from the Ellas of this world and say, no, we don't do it. We stick to what we've always done, and we narrow it, or we embrace it. We learn from them as well, and we form that unique relationship. So at Aspire2Be, a little bit of history, rewinding back to, when did I take over? I took over in 2009. I'd been deputy there for 5 years prior to that, 2 long spells as acting head teacher within that spell as well. And we had an inspection, inspection the following May, so about 6 months. Luckily, within the time as acting head and deputy, I obviously knew what the tweaks were. It's a very good school before I got there. And the values and ethos of the school changed, even though we adopted a huge amount of technology after that inspection. Went through the inspection, 7 grade 1s, 7 sector leading pieces of work highlighted by the Welsh Government. Outstanding. 100% grade 1 and grade 2 teaching. Of that, 89% grade 1. Excellent. Quite a young staff at the time. They've developed over the last 5 or 6 years and they've kept together. But an incredibly outstanding inspection. ICT in that inspection was deemed outstanding. So the provision we gave to our pupils, we were the first school, one of the first schools in Wales to put interactive whiteboards in every classroom. We were highly provisioned with PCs, laptops, you name it, we had it. We used it effectively within the school. We didn't use it effectively looking back to enhance teaching and learning. We didn't really use it effectively to give pupils choice of learning. We taught them how to use it. And therein lies the problem. And that's why we need to rip up the current curriculum in Wales, in my opinion, and start again. Because I was reading some research this week, there's going to be 750,000 jobs in the UK alone in the next 5 years for people who can code, who can program, who can computational think, who can work, who can develop apps, who can develop software. Yet currently in schools without curriculum, we teach them how to use it. So we made a decision after that inspection, and I promised the governors to find the next hook. Didn't have a clue what it was at the time. Didn't have a clue. I promised I'd find it. And it was a chance meeting really with a group of 10-year-olds having lunch one day. They were talking about Xbox, PSP, Game Boy, all these different things they were using socially at home. And they were talking about communicating through it and using the internet through it. Now, my background, I have no technology background. I have a computer science degree. I didn't even have computer, as it was then, studies GCSE. Nothing at all. And I asked them, what do you mean? You connect to the internet, you know, through, and they looked at me obviously as if I had 3 heads, and they were, of course we do, sir. I thought, that's it. Mobility, mobile learning. Now PCs, obviously, we still use PCs today, we still use laptops today. But we weren't able to take those to the outdoor environment, to get up and show 70-something, so mobile learning was the next hook. Long story, very long story cut short. We sent one question home to all our community, basically said, if you connect to the internet at home, what do you connect to? How do you do it? And we expected a list like that, I made a list like that. And that was 2010, and that blew us away. On that list, there was one child who said iPad at the time, because his dad had worked in the States. And to forget, it's only 2010 since the iPad actually came out. And several said iPod. So we took the minority, simply because we didn't know much about it. We borrowed one to start. I gave it to my literacy coordinator, who's now my acting head teacher. And I said, have a look at that. Think what we built. Think what the success of that inspection was built upon, which was inspiring, engaging and enthusing. Think of the literacy, how outstanding it was. Just concentrate on that. Could we use this, and this is the key bit, to enhance the pedagogy in the curriculum? Because my message would be today to you and to everywhere I go around the world speaking, there's no magic dust in the back of a piece of technology. There's no magic dust in the back of an iPad. There's no magic dust in the back of a program. We hold the magic dust. Because boring stuff on an iPad is still boring stuff. And a child would pick up on that very, very quickly. She came back and said, possibilities. So we set about doing some action research with a group of children who were underperforming, smashed that, raised their standards really, really well, because we had excellent teachers using the technology creatively, tied into our curriculum, and we were away. Fast forward till today, we were the first school in Wales to give every Key Stage 2 child their own iPad. That was back in 2011, so 150 children. We've picked up numerous national and international awards. We picked up the NACE Impact Award. We just picked up the Global Impact Award. We're the first school in Wales to pick up the 3rd Millennium Learning Award. But it was all built on those 3 pillars: pedagogy, curriculum, and then technology. So things are going well. Very well. Now, I could talk about apps for 3 to 4 to 5 hours, but I'm not going to, because it isn't about the apps. People ask me, can you give me a good science app? It isn't one. There's a great app which teaches you about the body, which is a 3D visual app. That's great. But without us teaching it and without us using that as an aid, it is what it is. So I don't want to talk about apps. There's hundreds of them. There's thousands, there's hundreds of thousands. And when we started our journey, we downloaded loads of turkeys, real turkeys. They were useless. But you've got to go through that. And it's only through experience and people like us doing it that we share, that we say, look, don't do that. I'd say we concentrate probably, key stage 2, we concentrate about 10 apps, and that's it. And they're built into our curriculum and everything else. So again, I'll make this available to you so you can see it, but I'm not going to talk a huge amount about hundreds of apps. The other key point of what we did when we started this was to engage the community. Because if you don't do that effectively at the start, you're faced with parents coming into school, seeing children on iPads, Androids, whatever tablets you're using, or whatever technology you're using, not seeing as much, in inverted commas, work in their books, and thinking they aren't reading, or they aren't writing, they aren't doing all these things. So the community engagement was key. We go to our website, we've got a blog site, a WordPress blog site, which you can see there, and we just got blogging. All our classes blog from nursery up, so teacher blogs and helps the child. They obviously say what they want to blog and they blog it. Parents then, there's an audience, so the parents then respond to those blogs, so we've got communication via the blog site back and forth. Massive difference. QR codes internally and externally in the school are everywhere. You'll see one there next to the entrance sign. That QR code links directly, when I was head there, directly to my blog, which has videos, which has messages, which has oral messages as well as written messages. So a lot of the schools I've worked in are in deprived areas of South Wales, and parents have high levels of illiteracy, but the head was still giving out paper newsletters and wondering why they weren't reading them. And the parents wouldn't come in and admit they couldn't read or write, but you just find the newsletters everywhere and no communication. So by using the QR code, you're able to link, there's an app called Audio2Be, where it's basically, it records your voice, creates a QR code. That QR code, if you click on it with your smartphone, you'll be able to play. So the head teacher I've worked with then read the newsletter and just put the link on the wall. So the parents come in, just click it, and they hear it reading it out. I'll talk about QR codes in more detail. There's 1,001 ways to use them. Our pupils, our digital leaders, which I'll go into more detail about later, they have their own blog and their own message board as well. That's on the wall in the form of a QR code. Twitter. Gentleman before me touched upon Twitter. Twitter as a communication tool to staff, to parents, to the community is incredible. About 18 months ago, I never used Twitter. I was of the opinion I didn't really care if Demi Moore was having a cup of tea at 2 in the morning. I didn't really want to know, but I was completely missing the point. Completely missing the point. On Twitter, for some reason, I haven't really worked it out yet. I've got about, 1,500 followers, and I follow just about 1,000 people. And obviously you can select, and out of interest, would anybody use Twitter at all? Yeah, a few, fab, okay. So if you don't use it, you can only use 140 characters at one time. So it's a great summarising tool to start with. I'd go on record as saying, I think, and I'm being filmed, look, that it's had the greatest impact on my CPD than any course, any teacher, any leader, anything. It's opened doors to me, and it's led me to share resources, learn from others, build up friendships and networks across the world I never had the opportunity to do otherwise. So if you haven't had a go at it, set up an account, it's free, follow educators or follow people who want to follow, and have a look at it. I'll talk more about Twitter in a second. Now, I mentioned the digital leaders. Who are the digital leaders? What do they do? If you're going to do this effectively, if you're going to integrate technology into your school effectively, your pupils have to be at the start making decisions and in the middle of it. If they're not empowered from the beginning, you're alienating them. And you're assuming you know what they want. Trust me, we don't. So you have to get them in the middle of it. Our digital leaders are probably the most prominent ones across Wales. So they go to conferences, they speak, they train the PGC students in Swansea. So these 11, these children now, 10 and 11. They train the PGC students every year, so 180 students. They take workshops with them. When we have conference days at the school, they take workshops with the head teachers. The difference being, why is it so effective? They realise, they look at us and think, I know more than you about this. And go back to what I said about Ella, by the time they get to 11, they can create content. They can make independent choices around what technology they want to use to enhance their learning. I've actually finished in Casucon. I finished 2 weeks ago, and I've set up a company, which I'll talk about later, education technology company with 10 consultants from around the UK. But I was in there last week, and I passed in one of the classrooms, and a child was writing a story. They finished the story, and they were printing out a QR code from their device and stick underneath. So I said, what's the QR code going to do? And she said, well, the thing is, so I didn't have enough time to finish. So what I've done, I've put in more detail. I've recorded more about the character descriptions and what should have happened at the end and everything else, so Miss can just scan it and she can hear it. Now, that to me is a damn good learner, because she's used independently a tool she's been taught to use effectively herself to stick under her story and go, well, Miss, just scan that and it'll finish it up. Without that, she couldn't do it, could she? So it's choices, and if they're empowered at the start, it gives them the ability to learn from it. You'll see there how Digitallys have got their own Twitter feed as well. Obviously, they don't tweet themselves, but they put weekly podcasts on there. They put screencasts of apps they use and how to use them effectively. They do all sorts. So if you want to follow digital leaders, that's a good Twitter feed to follow. So within Castle, who we use for every child who has their own iPad, we use Google Drive. So Google Drive, Google Apps for Education is free. So basically within that, every child gets their own Gmail account, which is their own email account, obviously. They get their own cloud storage. And within that, we make folders of numeracy, literacy, and work across the curriculum. So anything they do on the iPad, they're able to save in one of those folders electronically. They can go then open it at home, obviously, on a PC, on a phone, on a tablet, whatever. So for homework-wise, we can share learning. For peer-to-peer, class-to-class, we can just send learning back and forth via the iPad. It's all cloud-based. Now, going back to the community engagement bit, key here was to get the parents in and explain that. So we do Google Drive sessions with parents regularly, so they get the passwords of the children as well, so they can open up at home and see what's going on. What we find with that as well is a lot of parents are now using that at home, so it's a consistency. I put this together. I don't know why I got the 38 ideas. I don't know if I could just fill the box I was trying to write in. There's loads and loads of ways you can use Google Drive effectively in the classroom. There's loads of free apps within it. You got Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Forms, Google Slides. Like I said, the docs, peer-to-peer, so you can have a document live. So I could open a document and start typing and send it to a gentleman or lady in the back there. They could open up and they could be typing underneath as I'm doing it. So campus to campus, home to school, whatever. There's loads. I won't go through them, obviously, but when you have the presentation, you'll be able to go through those and see them yourself. One issue we had before the inspection, not an issue, but something we wanted to highlight before the inspection was homework. I'm sure you can also resonate with this. I was getting knocks on my door as a head teacher from parents on a Monday morning. Said, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Pridham. Said, John hasn't done his homework. We didn't realise he had it. We found a sheet at the bottom of his bag Sunday afternoon. He'd been to rugby in the morning. It was soaking wet. We got it out. We managed to make sense of it. It was long multiplication. Oh, God. And he told me it was different to when I did it in school. And we've had arguments. Yeah. So we thought, right, well, there's got to be a way using technology around this. How can we help this happen? Because ideally, we'd have parents in school every week showing them what we did, wouldn't we? Say, well, this is the strategy. This is how we did it. This is what your child should be doing, and off you go. So we use something called screencasting. And every teacher on a Friday has to develop, so when I take an assembly, or the head now takes an assembly, they get time in to go into their class to develop a screencast. Use an app called Explain Everything, which is about $1.99. It's an incredible app, and you can drop videos into it, audios, you can write over it, and I'll show you an example in a second now. So what we did was, we made sure that the teacher, first of all, for the first couple of weeks, makes the screencast. So when the child goes home, they can access it, they can see it on PC, phone, whatever, it doesn't make a difference. So we embed it into the blog site on that page. But then after 4 weeks, children make the screencast themselves. So on a rota, every child will make a screencast of a particular strategy or a particular strand of learning they've done that week. That then goes on the wall as a QR code and it stays up there for the year. So let's say our focus wall is maths. So this would be an example. This would be a very basic example of a maths one early on in the term, which the teacher would have done.
Well, hello Year 5, here's your homework for this week, the week of the 7th of October. And this week in maths, we're looking at doubling numbers. And this
She's writing on the sheet there, yeah?
Double two-digit numbers. So the first thing we need is a book. As it says here, at least 50 pages. You can use your reading book if you want to. And it asks you, the partner, to take it in turns to open the book at a random place. So here's me and my book.
See the video look is playing now? When he's just flicked to the book to show it. So the parents realise now, oh, I get what I've got to do. Not the child giving it back third hand.
So what I need to do is double 28. But as we've been doing it in class, let's break it down. So we get a double 20, and we need to double 8.
I'm sure we can all double 28, so I won't go through it, but you understand the power of that, yeah? So The child does that, so it gives them the empowerment how to learn to do the app, and what you'll find is, back in class, they're using screencast then for other things as well. So that has made a huge difference to that community link. It's also made a huge difference to the teaching and learning, because the teacher uses that in a different way throughout the week. So for example, if we had, I don't know, say 4 or 5 different maths groups, the teacher may make a particular screencast for one group, leave that on the table and work with 2 other groups. Maybe the lower ability group, maybe the middle group, maybe the top group, doesn't matter. It frees you up as a teacher as well. So explain everything for screencasting, fantastic. Now, we were doing all these wonderful things, winning these national awards and what have you, when we had children going from year 6 into year 7 and coming back on the first inset day about 3 weeks later saying, sir, you're not going to believe this. I've gone into an ICT lesson, they've asked me to do PowerPoint and 3 slides this term. I'd be like, okay, well, so we needed to do a transition piece with a comp. I mean, even, quite strangely really, we had quite a lot of parents coming in saying, oh, we're not sure you should be doing this, because when they go there, they don't do it. So we're not going to do something well because somebody else doesn't. And don't get me wrong, we got a fantastic relationship with our secondary school, Penrail, fantastic. But it's a cultural thing, isn't it? Within the secondary education, I get it, it's GCSE driven, but it's a cultural thing as well. And I'm glad to say a lot of secondary schools I've worked with, and a lot of secondary schools we've worked with as Welsh Government, are doing some outstanding things with mobile technology. So, piece of work we did. So the first thing we said was, okay, so obviously the majority of pupils coming into the secondary school have got mobile phones. And the head said, yes, they have, but we don't allow them to bring them in. They're banned. Right, okay. So we said, what's the reason for that? Oh, it would lead to all sorts of trouble. So we said, have you piloted, have you tried it, have you just given it? No, we're not even going there. It's ridiculous. Okay, so I get it. I get the worries and I get the things around it. So we said, let's pilot it with one year group, and in particular, 2 forms, 2 classes. And we did. And we just did 10 different things. The first thing we used were QR codes. QR codes I've talked about can be used for anything really. And we had children by the end of the pilot using QR codes. Like I said, they were using them in primary school. We had to open up some things on the network to make them work, mind? Calculators. Now, some of the most effective tools on your mobile phone, as you will all know, are the simple, free things. I can remember being a year 6 teacher and sending to Mrs. Jones for the calculators. You know, you get the box back, don't you? And she sends the one back with the buttons missing. And you search for a bit of solar to try and make it work. So a bit of, half your lesson's gone, isn't it? Well, if they've got them in their pocket and they're supposed to be independent learners, let's let them use them. So calculators. So they use the calculators. I've talked about Twitter as a community engagement tool, but an incredible tool for teaching and learning. One of the classes we worked with decided we can use Twitter as a history class, history teacher, and he said we'll use Twitter. They were looking at World War II as a study topic. And he set up 2 fake accounts. One is Adolf Hitler and one is Winston Churchill. And every day that term, he then put different tweets of how the war was progressing from both sides of the fence. The engagement every morning with children coming in, he put it up on the board, children coming in was incredible, absolutely incredible. It was a bit unnerving because one morning he walked in, you could hear children shouting in the corridor, what's Adolf saying today, sir? What's he up to? Keep it down, keep it down. But from that obviously came a huge amount of learning. A lot of literacy came off it, a lot of history came off it, everything came off it, geography came off it, just the Twitter feeds. And unintentionally, but it happened, it split the class into two groups. At the end of it, they finished the topic with a huge debate about it, and the knowledge they had around it was incredible. They wanted to delve into the textbook. They wanted to do research in it because they were looking at the tweets. They wanted to know what happened next. The other class, another class we worked with, was a literacy-based teacher. And she did a wonderful lesson, I observed, right at the end of the pilot. So she had technology going on, 5 or 6 groups doing different things. In the corner was a MacBook. Could be a PC, it could be anything, doesn't matter. And she had Twitter on there, just the Twitter feed. So I thought, oh, perhaps she's been checking the school account or checking her own account, whatever. So she did an introduction and she set people tasks, and off she went and she said to the first little boy, oh, John, whatever, just over you go. And over he went, and I was in the back. I could see John looking and reading, and he typed something in, and he ticked his name, and he went to the next child and tapped. And this just happened. So the 29 children all did this at some stage between 9:15 and 11:30, whatever it was. By 11:30, she finished, did a plenary of the groups, and the last 20 minutes she'd write. She flicked it up onto the board, she'd write, we now have a class story, boys and girls. She'd started one fine day, blah, 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 blah. Very cleverly, she differentiated it by putting the lower ability pupils first, so they only had a few feeds to read, and the higher ability pupils right at the end. So by the time they got there, she knew that it would started well, and finished well, and in between you had people of mixed ability. They then spent the whole afternoon, because I stayed, I thought, how is she going to work this now? She spent the whole afternoon, she dissected the whole story. She looked at the mechanics of a story, the connectives in the story, the punctuation, the grammar, everything. She literally unpicked the whole thing. Everyone was engaged. 2 groups made an animation of the story while she was doing it. And by the end of the day, they had a class story printed out with 2 animations to back up what they'd done. Now, you know as well as I do, that would take half a term if you wanted to draft it, redraft it, do it in best, or whatever else we do. Yeah? Now, that's not to say we don't write something after it, is it? That now, in one day, has taught the children the skills they're going to need to start writing their own stories. And they're more likely to be engaged in writing it now because they've done it that way to start. And the writing she developed as a result of that after it was fantastic. So Twitter can be used for, well, again, it's limitless. It's how creative you want to be with it. If you need to use for revision guides in GCSE level, so the teacher sets up an account, let's say history, GCSE revision account, sends out reminders, sends out links, all sorts of things. The voice recorder on every smartphone. Simple but effective. How many children do we know who struggle to take bombardment of information in? Why can't they just record us and then play it back and listen to it? Because that's what they would do outside school, wouldn't they? I think for far too long we've sort of cocooned ourselves in education as some sort of parallel universe to what goes on outside. I know secondary heads have said to me, oh, we can't use mobile phones in school because they could be looking at all sorts. Well, with all due respect, they could walk into your yard and pick up 3G and look at all sorts anyway. Well, they're protected in this room, but they're not going to do it out there. Foursquare. Foursquare they use brilliantly. For those of you who know Foursquare, it's a sort of orientation app basically, so your coordination. So they did that as a transition piece. Year 6 is going into Year 7. They used the app so they didn't get lost in the building. Simple, effective, but it cut down on sort of emotional issues for those Year 6s going in. It made them feel more at home. So they taught them how to use it in Year 6. When they went up to Year 7, they used it effectively on their phones. And don't forget, not everybody had phones, but the ones who did were able to use it. The ones who didn't had other pieces of information to use. I don't think you can say you have to use your phone now. It has to be an option. And if you don't have a phone, then it's an option. Use some other piece of technology. Virtual field trips. There's loads and loads of apps out there you can use on a PC, you can use on your phone, you can use on an iPad, which can take you anywhere in the world like that. Panoramic 360 is one of them. There's loads and loads. You know, if you're doing modern foreign languages, you can go to the Colosseum, you can go to the Eiffel Tower, you can actually take a trip around there whilst you're doing some empathy or some writing around what you're trying to do. One word of warning with that though, vet it first. Because I did one on beaches, and we landed up on a beach I didn't really want to land up on, if you know what I mean. The Year 8s loved it, but it was a bit embarrassing, I've got to be honest. Timer, simple, timer. For people who want to, manage their time better within class, especially in secondary school where we only have them for a short space of time. We want them to meet certain levels and criteria within that time. Use the timer on your phone. There was nothing there that's going to cost any money, is it? It's all free. And calendars. Google Calendars, there's loads and loads and loads, isn't it? So we did that, and it worked. I did this in a conference, secondary heads conference in Essex about 6 weeks ago. And I got to that stage, there was a gentleman right in the back, and as I was speaking, he was getting redder and redder, head teacher, redder and redder as I was saying it. And I thought, he's going to explode now. And I got to there, and he was puce, and he said, I've tried it. And he was pointing. I said, sorry, tried what? This, mobile phones, he said, secondary school, rubbish. Tried it for a week, didn't work, disaster. I said, okay. I said, do you want to share the story? Yes, I will share, he said. He said, we had 3 families in, we had 4 fights, and all of it on YouTube. I said, yeah. I said, fantastic. I said, there's a couple of points there, isn't there? Well, number one, you've got a behaviour policy, not a phone policy problem, haven't you? Secondly, were you aware of the issues with those families and those children before it landed up on YouTube? Well, there's been a few rumblings. So I said, you hadn't addressed it before it got to there, so obviously you need to look at your behaviour policy or how children report things in school or whatever else, yeah? Well, I suppose so. So I said, let's be honest, you never really wanted it to work, did you? And he calmed down and he said, no. And that's the problem. He was looking for an excuse. He was looking for something to happen to sort of justify his decision and say, I never want it. Because, and I can see his point, he wasn't comfortable with it. It wasn't his world. He was coming towards the end of his career. But, you know, for goodness sake, if we're going to take these phones off the children coming in as they walk through the door, it's like chopping an arm off. Now, it's important, obviously, we do take e-safety into full consideration. We take safeguarding into consideration, and we don't want them just playing around with the phones all day while we teach them. So how would you do it? Well, there's a few important points to do this. You need to co-construct with your digital leaders, irrespective of what age they are, whether they're sixth form, whether they're year 8, whether you're 7, co-construct with them an effective code of conduct. And the reason I say that at the start is because if you co-construct it with them, it becomes their code of conduct. If they break their code of conduct, you take their phone off them, it's not your fault. And you say to them, well, you decided it, you're not doing it, thank you. One of the consultants, one of the employees of the company I've set up is a guy called Matt Pullen. Matt works currently up in Bristol Academy. He's an Apple Distinguished Educator. He's coming on board us in September. He uses this, and this has been the most effective code of conduct I've seen used for mobile phones in secondary school. Simple, but effective. So you co-construct it with the students, pilot it in key classes or key departments, always remain positive. Even if that thing ends up on YouTube, then for every action there's a consequence. Whoever did that, obviously, doesn't use their phone, do they? And you set the limits around that. It's the same as a child picking a chair up and throwing it to somebody in the back of the class. For every action there's a consequence, isn't it? It's the same with the phones. Remain positive. Always praise effective learning when it's been done. Always. Share it with other departments. Stick to the code. Never go off it. Be harsh on it, but stick to it. And always disseminate good practice throughout the school. So how does it work? Well, you can see a simple traffic light system, red, amber and green. You'll see at the top it says, for red, no devices needed this lesson, keep them away. Easy to understand, simple. You see for amber it says, you may need it, so keep it close by, but only if a teacher asks. So just keep it out on your desk, middle of the table, whatever it's going to be. And you'll see to both of those, the speech bubble there says, if you use it, you'll have it confiscated for the lesson. So if you use it when you shouldn't, I'm having it back. Easy. Green is the interesting one. Go for it. See how it can help educational use only though. And that bubble there is key. Your teachers trust in you. Don't let me down. That's it. That actually works. And when we brought that into the secondary school, we had about 4 weeks of people getting their phones taken off them. And after that 4 weeks, it works easily. Now you can co-construct that in a different way. But that's all you need really, is that. You don't need a 25-page policy in the back of it. You need that in every room. So everyone understands, teachers, head teachers, senior leaders, pupils, parents. So they know what the rules are. Simple. And when the teacher comes in, all he or she does is just with a sticker or what have you, just go, right, okay, today's lesson, that's it. They didn't say anything. You just put a sticker up. Pupil looks up, okay, got it. So mobile phones in secondary education worked a treat for us in Swansea. Now, if you've got the mobile phones, obviously, you can use QR codes more effectively. Now, bear in mind, every child in a school I was head at, it's quite strange to say that actually, I was head at, had their own iPad. So they didn't need phones, we could use for everyone to do. But if you have that, touched upon QR codes, free and easy to use, can be put up internally or externally to use for as many things as you want them to use for. Some examples here of things I've seen them used effectively for, include on fitness equipment so students can view the correct exercise videos. So you'd film, I don't know, for example, usually in PE, a child doing a wonderful vault, say. So you film it, bang it up onto your YouTube account or Vimeo account or on your school website, whatever. Create a QR code, which is the link. Child scans it, sees the link. So that can go on fitness equipment. Use them on walls and windows where students line up to link to a weekly challenge. That could be anything. Create subject-specific treasure hunts attached to classroom doors and link to teacher blogs with subject and revision information. Bring displays to life by linking to videos. Every school I've worked in or I've advised, we've advised them to change the display policy so that every single display board in the school, and I mean everyone, has to have at least 2 elements of interactivity to them. QR codes, augmented reality, something to bring it to life. Link into articles and revision sites on classroom displays, link into class blogs and posters on the school. It is absolutely endless. And go back to that screencast I talked about earlier. You imagine now, let's take maths for example. Let's say we're doing long multiplication and we do it in the first 2 weeks of the autumn term. And we're touching upon it, but not really revisit it until the spring term. And towards the end of the autumn term, a child is stuck. What do they do? What was a strategy, whatever? That screencast, which has been made, which is on the school website for the parents to see for homework, you create a QR code of that, goes up on your display board, your maths display board with log multiplication. The child scans it any time of the day, any time of the year, and sees that video again. So we're creating that independent learning to go and access information around our classroom, which is a learning zone. It's a live learning zone, interactive zone. There's loads and loads and loads. Some of the best ways I've seen them used. This one here is a QR mat. Think of a story mat, like a learning mat. This is PE, but it could be anything. Doesn't matter what subject or what it could be. There were 16 modules in the PE course that the guy was teaching. This is a guy up in Durham, a guy called John Tate, who I'll come on to in a minute now. He's one of our consultants as well. So what he did was, let's say for example, there you've got warm up and cool down, fitness testing, whatever. Let's take fitness testing. So let's say they spent a week on fitness testing. By the end of that week, one of the students would make a screencast around that. So what they've learnt, or key messages, or hinge question answers, whatever it could be. That then goes up on the wall as a revision task. Okay, what John did was keep that and put it on his mat. As the term progressed, by the end of the term, John made this mat, A4 mat, he had 16 QR codes on there, give it to all the pupils. So then he had 16 screencasts, one for every module they had done that term as a revision piece. Parents had it, whoever wanted it had it. Simple, free, brilliant, effective. Now, I'm not sure about your communities, but communities I've worked in, I'll talk about one or two of them in a second, some of the most deprived, socially challenged communities in Wales, in which very few parents may have Wi-Fi, or very few parents may have a device at home, or a PC, or a laptop, or what have you. Everyone I've worked in, 100% of them have had a smartphone. Because, if you think about it, that ticks a hell of a lot of boxes. And they need them, we need them every day. So, for community links and for parents and for children, the more of this we're doing, the more chance we've got of hooking them in many different ways. The second one there you'll see, similar sort of thing. This was a maths one done in, I think it was a university, I think it was a secondary school. I can't even read some of these. Roles and mean value theorem, numerical integration. It's the same thing. It's key strategies, it's screencasts, it's the lecturer or the teacher giving some information, or the student or pupil doing the same thing. They're up on the wall, you just scan them. Brilliant, easy.
Can I just ask, how do these codes get created?
There's loads if you go into the App Store or into the Android Store or the Google Play, just type in QR, you'll have hundreds and hundreds of them. I use one called Red Laser. Basically, all you do is it has to link to something. So you can link to a piece of text, it can link to a web link, it can link to a phone number, which then you could phone, it could be anything at all. So you just put in what you want, so say URL. Put the URL in, create, it gives you the code, you email the code yourself, print it out. Or you save the code to your camera roll, and you got it. It is that easy, simple. There's two types of QR codes. QR stands for quick response code. So you got the QR code, which is the unique one, which is the majority, or you can buy dynamic QR codes. Dynamic QR codes, the actual code stays exactly the same, but you can change the content behind it. So think of the ones I had in the yard earlier. You could put that up in the yard. It gets hosted somewhere. It doesn't cost much. I'm not sure how much it is. You get about 10 free, and then you pay a sort of a surcharge after that. But a company then hosts them, so you can change. You send them the link, they change it every week for you. So you don't need to change the static QR code, but you can change the content behind it. There's a lovely one I saw in Barry a couple of weeks ago in a secondary school, in the primary school, where the parents congregated sort of to pick the children up. You had sort of the staff room window, and they just put 5 balloons in the window, or 6 balloons, whatever it was. Year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a QR code, see what we've done this week. So the parents were just scanning it, bump, and they were looking at a video, or they were looking at a written report, or a child saying something, and all that was on the website then backed up. Now that's just easy, but it's a quick way of using technology effectively. And that sums it up for me, really, doesn't it? Yeah, that picture sums it up. I'm too young to remember those at the top, obviously, but I'm joking. Oh, we have, haven't we? And listen, it is what it is. You're right. Some schools are still using those. I'd be absolutely flabbergasted if everybody was still using a phone like that, mate. You'd probably get arrested or get somebody's eye out today, wouldn't you? But that's it, isn't it? That, in a nutshell, is it. So you don't need 150 iPads. You don't need a huge investment. You have to be creative in the way you use it effectively. So, why did we do it at Castlecoe? Why did we work with our secondary school? Why did we work with our community? And why was it so successful? Well, they are sort of the 5, I think, key points evaluated, which sum it up. It redefines the tasks which deliver teaching and learning. That goes without saying. Because we are doing things in schools we've worked with are doing things now which were simply impossible back in 2010 because of the technology. Second one is obvious, isn't it? It independently integrates technology into a child's educational journey. When we started this, we had a lot of press around it, and I haven't told you the story about the running with the local authority. We had a nightmare with Swansea Council because we basically went to them and said, look, we've got a vision after this inspection. We were in your probably the highest performing school in your authority. This is the vision, these are the aims, these are the objectives, that's what we want to do. Use us as a pilot school. Don't give us money, just let us test things. Open up some of the ports on the Wi-Fi so we can actually use it, so it's not locked down. And we'll be a pilot school and we'll share it. We'll teach others how to do it. And I never forget the meeting, it'll go with me to my grave. There's a guy, I won't mention his name, but his title was, it was a fantastic title, something like the 21st Century Visionary for Schools. It's a hell of a title. Right? And you want to see this guy, he explained, and he said, I'll stop you there. He said, the answer's no. I said, okay, any particular reason for that? And he said, well, to me, he said, an iPad's a big phone. The vision, an iPad's a big phone, and we don't do Apple. Now, I couldn't care if it's apple, banana, chestnuts, I couldn't care less. If it improves my school and gives my pupils more opportunity and helps my teachers and my community engagement, we're going to use it. So we went through a protracted sort of session of, well, given our views, we can do this. It didn't work. So we came back, and this was riding on the crest of the wave of the inspection. And we thought, well, we can either accept that, or we can basically stick 2 fingers up to it and do it. So we brought all our community members in, all our parents in, with 350 people in the hall, bit of a Martin Luther King moment. And we said, this is the dream. It was, this is the dream. This is what we want to do. And we spelled it out to them, and I said, look, we can do it. We need to go to some really good schools across the world. We're in Britain to learn, but we're going to have to put our own Wi-Fi in, we're going to have to buy our own iPads, we're going to have to break many procurement rules to buy them because nobody's on the framework selling them. Can we do it? And they said, do it. So it was fab. Looking back, it was kind of foolish thing to do. If I was sacked, I dare say they wouldn't have all given me £10 each for my wage that month, would they? But anyway, so we went to 2 of the best schools in the world to learn, one in Scotland called the Cedar School of Excellence, a guy called Fraser Spears. They were the first school in the world to give every child an iPad. And we went to the Aspire Academy in Bolton, which is an incredible story, which I won't go into detail today. But basically it was had 4 weeks to turn things round. Ofsted had been in, intervention boards, all sorts of things. They were going to close it. Inner city Bolton, high AL, high FSM, drug and alcohol dependency amongst parents, real rough area. And a guy called Abdul Chauhan, who again is one of our consultants. Abdul came in as a director of technology and bought every child an iPod in 2007. Fast forward to now, they now give every child an iPad. The child has to bring their own iPod to school. If you go there and get the chance to go there, because they do sort of study visits, go. They don't mention technology. They don't say we use this and that. You just see it. What they mention is learning. What they mention and what you see is top quality pedagogy. Last year, they were in the top 3% of any school in England, secondary school. 98% children left there with 5 grade A to C, and of that, 97% had both English and maths.
What was the name of the school again?
Aspire Academy, ESSA. Now, that's not because they give everybody an iPad or they give everybody an iPod, is it? It's because they had the vision around using the technology effectively. They changed their curriculum to a New Zealand and combination of New Zealand and Australian curriculum. They run a 6-monthly curriculum, so they push students. They got rid of all the teachers who didn't want to teach and didn't like children. And there's plenty of them, isn't there? There's plenty of them. And they brought in people who really got it. Now, as an academy, obviously, you've got the luxury of being able to do that, haven't you? But it took them 7 years, and it's an incredible story. So we went off on our own and did our own thing, and I'll come back to what happened at the end in a second. Engaging with the pupils' world, obvious, isn't it? We've got children outside our school gates using technology effectively, like those children talking to me about Xbox and whatever, every day. It doesn't replace, that's the key thing, it doesn't replace your reading books, doesn't replace your pen, your pencil or anything else. It enhances it. We spent £10,000 on a new reading scheme. What we did was we had 10 in our, we had a 21st century learning zone built, and in that we had 10 feature sort of potholes, if you like, where books went. 2 for every class. And when certain children finished their reading book, they had to record them, to give them a scaffold, they had to record the book review on their iPad to make a film. Then we use an app called Erasma, which is an augmented reality app. We link that to the cover of the book. It's free, it's a free app. And then you link your video. So the next child that goes in, holds their iPad up or their phone, scans the book cover, and the child's face appears out of it and says, this book was wonderful, or this book was rubbish, I wouldn't bother with it. Now, that doesn't enhance the reading of the book, but by damn, there's more boys who read books now because they do that at the end of it. It's carrot and donkey, and they love it. So it engages with the pupil's world. Think of my daughter in 2032. If we still have universities as we have them today, if they're in the same format, if she goes to university, she's going to turn around and laugh at this, isn't she? Remember that big iPad Dad used to have? She's going to laugh in 5 years, isn't she? Remember used to use me with cucumber and my thumbs at the start of it all over the world and show everybody, thanks for that, that was great. Point is, we can't, in education, we can't evolve and we can't keep up with technology. It's impossible. Not even the top schools in the world can do it because it changes daily. The secret is to get the infrastructure right, so your Wi-Fi is safe and secure. Every member of staff understands the importance of how to deliver the pedagogy using technology. They also understand that relationship I'm talking about between your student and yourself. And sometimes you've got to let go and they can know a lot more than you, but that's okay. That's fine. Because that student or pupil sees you as a fine example of a lifelong learner. And it works. It works. So from that, a guy called Jeremy Stevens, who is now my business partner, took over as the head of IT in Swansea. And now bear in mind, we did a torturous 2 years. I'd had personally 5 audits against myself. The school had 4 or 5 audits because you were breaking all these procurement rules, doing nothing wrong. And he landed up at this job and saw all these audits on his desk. And he just actually came to the school. He was the first person from Swansea Council who actually knocked the door. Bear in mind, we had 700 people from all over the UK come to see what we were doing. So he knocked the door and he said, what are you doing? Can you show me? And we said, yeah, come in. So we showed him, and everything I told you, I told him. And he said, this is brilliant. He said, we could use you as a pilot school, and we could share it across Swans. You can't make it up, honestly. So I said, oh, strangers did say that. Have a look at that. So he said, right, this is brilliant. This is very exciting. So we said, oh, this is a breath of fresh air. So he said, what's it called? What's the brand and what's the badge? We said, well, it's just what we do. It's not brand. We're a school, and we don't brand it. There's no name to it. Because one other thing we did, which I need to mention, as well as the parent stuff, we did a wonderful piece of work with called Skillshare with our over 70s in the community. So we asked them all. But first of all, we sent a questionnaire out and said, give us a skill you've got you can share with us, and we'll share the skill with you. And nobody replied, which I found really sad. Then we put a big, massive buffet on in the hall, and 60 of them turned up. Always the way, food, always the way. They turned up, we locked the doors, they couldn't get out, and we said, right, now, what do you do in your spare time? And one said, oh, I sew. We said, brilliant, we can use you. Another one said, oh, I knit. We said, we can use you too. One said, I run the allotment. One said, I sing in a choir, and so on and so forth. So we had about 10 of those. We brought them in and we built them into our Keisha's 2 curriculum. So, for example, World War II, the lady who could knit, and she brought 6 of her friends with her, Gladys, lovely lady, brought 6 of her friends with her. When we were doing World War II, we were talking about make, do and mend. She taught the children as a key skill how to knit and how to sew, so they could empathise with it. And we do a huge amount in school around key skills detectives. And the singer helped out with our after-school choir. The allotment guy helps out with our eco club, doing our planting, blah, blah, blah. The payback was, the guy with the allotment, we said, we can help you digitally. What do you want? He said, well, a website. So we built a website with him. We also built a blog site. He now gets over 1,000 hits a month on parsnip tips or whatever it is. The guy with the choir, he had relatives out in Australia. We taught him how to Skype and how to set an account up and everything else. Gladys and her little gang of sewers and knitters, we simply taught them how to shop online. Simple but effective, changed their life. They had to catch, they're 85, some of these women. They had to catch a bus in the cold in the middle of February, down to Forest Fach, icy roads. It was a nightmare. So we said, just shop, simple. Now, all of a sudden, that was a nice thing to do, but something happened we didn't realise would happen. Out in the community, all of a sudden, that 7-year-old and the 70-year-old started crossing the road and talking about learning. So it was a community cohesion piece. It was incredible. No longer did the 70-year-old see the 7-year-old as the devil incarnate on a bike with a hood up. And no longer did the 7-year-old see the 70-year-old as a target for throwing an egg or whatever it was. So we thought we are onto something. So the brand we came up with was called the LIFE programme. And it stands for Lifelong Intergenerational Furthering Education. The badge speaks for itself. Learning has no boundaries or strapline. The badge speaks for itself. You've got 3 generations of learner there, all learning together with technology as the enabler. I won't go into a massive amount of detail with it because I could speak for about 5 hours on this alone. So that's it. Or that was it, because it doesn't really exist in this format anymore. Can in the back read that to me? Can you just pick it up for me? No. It looks really complicated. It's not. It's not at all. In there, you've got 2 main universities in Swansea. You've got Gower College. You've got every primary school, every secondary school, 107 of them. You've got private businesses, private enterprises, Welsh Government, people like Technocamps, European funded organisation on Swansea University's campus, loads and loads and loads. So what did we do? What was it all about? Well, first thing we did, we gave training to every single head teacher in Swansea about the vision around doing this properly. Because I was finding, and we were finding, head teachers are phoning up saying, we bought 60 iPads, can you give us training? And we'd say, well, we can help, what do you want to do? I don't know, you're going to give us the training. As if the magic was in the back of it. We say, no, it doesn't work that way. You've got to articulate your vision before you can buy the whatever it is. It may not be the iPad you want, maybe a Chromebook, maybe an Android. So we did training for heads. We asked them all to identify an e-learning manager, and that role is completely different to the ICT coordinator. I'll say why later. It's completely and utterly different. We did training for them around what is an e-learning manager, what are the main responsibilities, what's it look like, what you do. We then ran Essential Skills in Wales qualification courses for teaching assistants, of which we had 180 come through, 100% pass rate. Now, anybody who knows anything about the Essential Skills in Wales IT qualification, it used to be, and I was amazed when I met the lady for the first time. She brought the portfolio with her, paper-based portfolio that size for IT, which I couldn't really work out. So you're printing out screenshots and printing out. So we said, we're not doing that. We'll do everything cloud-based through the iPad, which we did. And fair play, they let us do it. So they didn't touch a piece of paper, those IT, those TAs. So we did that. So now we had, the head got it, the e-learning manager, the pedagogical understanding and respect of the other teachers in the school. The TA got it. Then we said, sit down, articulate your vision, because now you've got a team. Did all that. We linked up with Technocamps, we did coding, we took children to deprived areas and created a talent academy where they made their own apps. We trained, like I said earlier, Swansea Met PGCE students, our digital leaders, the 11-year-olds, formed a talent academy. We did all sorts of things. The last one there is what I want to talk about. Target areas, personalised mentoring. Now, the politicians in Swansea at the time had just come into power, the Labour coalition, and they said to us, right, as part of our manifesto, we've got 6 target areas in the city. So areas which have suffered both socially, economically, education-wise, all sorts of problems going on. Go up there and sort it out. So there's a school called Seaview Primary School in Swansea. If you ever go into Swansea, as you go past SA1, look up to your right, you'll see it's like a semi-dome building on the side of the mountain. Hence the name Seaview. Ranked number 1 most socially deprived school in Wales. Community, not broken, dysfunctional community. Now, when I went in there for the first time, 17 children in the year 6 class. And we went in thinking, right, we'll put iPads in one-to-one like we've done. We'll put the Wi-Fi in, we'll teach them how to use it properly, we'll do the pedagogy, we'll do some community links, we'll be gone. We were wrong. When we sat down with those 17 children, I said, what do you want to do when you're older? One boy, apart from one boy, every boy said go to the post office every Thursday to collect the social security money. And every girl, you know what the girls are going to say? Every girl, to a girl said, I need a baby time I'm 16 to be able to live somewhere. Now, we could judge that and we could think about it and what it means and everything else, but that's the harsh reality of that community. Of those 17 families, only 6 of those families, and I mean whole families, had ever left that community in the last 5 years. So you got house, pub, bookies, social club, health centre, post office, school, home. Self-esteem was rock bottom throughout there. That's why they never left there. They felt comfortable in that environment. Now, bear in mind, these children can see the beach. They literally get a wonderful view. They're looking out of the windows, bars on the windows. Mind when we got there. Now, the majority of their parents had experienced prison or been in prison, so these kids felt like they were in prison. So we got them off, put the electronic shutters there. They see the beach, and of those 17, only 2 had ever been there, 11 years of age. It's literally a mile and a half away. So we thought, all right, this is a bigger piece of work than just putting iPads and everything else. I'll play the video, which is about 2 minutes, and explain what we did and the tremendous effect it had. The last 12 months have been a whirlwind of activity at Castlecourt Primary School on the latest stage of our digital journey. We firmly believe we are preparing our pupils, parents and community to become effective 21st century digital citizens.
This year in Media Club we have been tutoring Seaview Primary. We've been teaching them how to use lots of different apps on the iPads.
What's lovely is the children from Seaview Primary will then be able to go back to their school and show what they've learnt here.
The Life programme have come to Seaview Primary School and it's made a big difference in the school and the children.
It's had a positive impact on the school. The children don't even realise that they're learning when they're using the iPads.
The children have really enjoyed working with Castlefoo to do the Life project on the iPads.
It's helped my conversation and it's helped my reading and it's took me to a whole new level.
The attendance levels are shot up as children are looking forward to coming to school more.
We feel more proud to be in school, and I've noticed that a lot of people have been coming into school more, and now nearly everyone loves to come to school.
It's been a really inspiring 2 days because I feel as a practitioner I've got a lot out of it myself, particularly the restorative practice, which again is something I will take back to my schools.
Since embarking on the Life programme journey, the use of iPads in foundation phase has made a huge difference to the children.
I work in nursery and reception and they love the iPads. They figured them out really quickly and they're just so excited about them.
Our vision for the Life programme was that it would give our children the confidence to have real aspirations for the future, and it would also give them the skills to achieve those aspirations. That has happened at every level within the school.
It's given me the confidence to speak out loud, it's made me a better reader and it's transformed my life.
I think it's really good because it's enhancing my learning and other children's learning that gets a chance. And then when we go home, we can then share our learning with other people and then they'll share their learning and we'll help everybody then.
We turned around after that first visit, went back to the school and I said to my governors, we've got to do more than just technology, or we've got to try and really help because these children are not getting anywhere near what they should be getting. And I don't know whose fault it was. I don't know if it's anybody's fault really. It is what it was. So our governors agreed to mentor their governors. Our PTA mentored those 3 lovely charmers there, which I'll talk about in a minute, and they were fab. Our pupil digital leaders mentored their digital leaders. I mentored SLT. We had teacher-to-teacher support as well. So basically, before it came into fruition now, it was the school-to-school support programme really, which obviously works effectively. Those 3 PTA members were fab. Now, they were from the 3 strongest and most prominent families in the area. Right? I'm laughing because they were brilliant. They controlled everything, and I mean everything. Right? They lived in one street. Nobody moved in, nobody moved out. The council put one family in about 2 years ago. They lasted 2 days, they were gone. Now, those 3, they would turn up at school, they ran the PTA. When I mean ran it, they ran it. They dragged people in from the yard to events. They'd raised thousands of pounds, incredible amount of money. So let's say they've done a summer fair and they've raised £1,000. They take all the money, they put it in Tesco bags, tie a knot in it, take it home, put it under the bed for safekeeping. I swear. Because they knew nobody would break into their house to pinch it. I swear. They worried that if they put it in the school, one of them even said, my 15-year-old boy would break in and pinch it. So we keep it. So the intentions was good, but I'm thinking, my God, you can't do this. You can't keep £2 grand under the bed. So the head would have to phone the PTA and say, look, I need some new footballs. Can you bring £75, £80 down? They'd bring it down, exact money, ask for a receipt and go. It was mad. So we thought, right, we got to change this. So we did a stakeholder engagement piece with them. And the first time I went to meet them, I'll never forget. I walked in and they said I was coming. So I didn't know who they were. I didn't know what. I thought, oh, lovely, now meet the PTA, they'd be fab. Those 3 sitting there, coats done up, arms folded, looking at the phone, no eye contact. And I got as far as my seat there and they went, what do you want? And I said, I don't want anything. Are you from a council? And I went to explain, well, in theory I am. I said, well, yes, mistake. I had everything. I had dripping drain pipes, I had lights not working, pot, I had everything, didn't I? So we got over that. Now, I've played rugby all my life, and I got to say, that hour, I've never heard language like it. It was incredible. But I said to him, stop there now. I said, what do you want? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm a head teacher. I don't work for the council. They pay me, but I don't work for them. What do you want for your child in your community? One said, I want hope. I said, well, I can do that. Another one said, I want this school to be a better school than when I came here, because I hated it. And my mother hated it even more. I said, I get that, and I can do that. All of a sudden, the courts came and done, and we started talking about what they wanted, and we talked about what we wanted to do, and they became on board. Now, they were key. If I didn't get them on board at the start, we wouldn't have done what we'd done. Now, they went out in the yard and they got up a huge amount of support for what we were doing. They were going around the shop saying the life programme's coming to a mail, and they would say, what is it? Can't tell you. So they didn't really know, but they knew it was something good, and it created an aura around it. So the children actually started coming to school because those parents pushed them into school. Attendance when we got there was an average of 77%, which was dire. We took it to 97% average in a year. We give every child their own iPad in year 6, one between 2 and year 5, every teacher, every TA. Made some difficult decisions. We had to sort of move teachers from classes and things so they weren't the right fit for what we wanted to do. We did it in the right way, explained the reasons for it, we got the community on board, and it was an incredible year. Now, at the start of the year, and I was meeting with Leighton Andrews regularly at the time and keeping up to date with what we were doing. And Leighton said to me, look, Simon, we can't do anything with this unless we have data. It's as simple as that. Now, a huge amount of soft data like self-esteem, aspirations, they all changed. The one child who didn't want to go to the post office, wanted to work in McDonald's. The reason he wanted to work in McDonald's because his dad had come out of prison, near enough a heroin addict, had got clean, had got a job in McDonald's, and that was his hero. And to be honest, he was my hero too, fair play to him. But that's all he had around him to aspire to was that. Now, an incredible achievement as it is, this boy was clever. He had great computational thinking skills, he was great with technology, he had good oracy skills. He, after the programme, wanted to be a games technician. Now, he may never be a games technician, but for a minute he's got a different aspiration, he wants to do something different, he's thinking outside the box. We took a load of the girls down to Swansea University every Tuesday and gave them computational thinking. They developed their own app called Mr. Bagel and his friends, don't ask me why. Mr. Bagel and his friends, they worked with industry experts from Tinopolis and Box UK, so they learned those skills. We did site visits, we took them out of the area, we took them to the Liberty Stadium, we got Swansea City Academy players that come in to act as role models to read, we did all sorts. The projected levels in literacy, because we concentrated on literacy, projected levels at level 4 in literacy were 58% at the end of year 6. We took that to 82%. We took them from quartile 4 to quartile 2 in a year. Attendance, like I said, went up to 97% from 77%. Reading, you'll see there, it isn't the best, I apologise, but all of these here in red were below, this is year 6 now, below their chronological reading age at the start of that year. That was the end of the year. And even these 3 here made progress for over 3 years. We took reading from an average of 9 years in a month to 13 years in 3 months. And people say, oh, you can't do that. We did it. Backed up by standardisation, moderation, national testing backed it up. Their standardised scores, everything. Now, that's not just because we give them all iPads. It's because we changed the culture. And to do this right, you have to change the culture of your school. The teachers realised that relationship thing I was talking about. We showed them key ways to engage, inspire and enthuse. The parents are on board, so they sent them to school. So when the child said, I'm not going to school today, Mum, they didn't say, OK, love. They said, get into school. The PTA were formed. They now have a 17-strong PTA, and those 3 are treasurer, secretary and chair. And they don't take the money home anymore. They put it in the bank. So it's a lifestyle thing as well, which we changed. Now, the problem with that was we were taking them into secondary school, same as us, taking them into secondary schools. Bishop Gore Secondary School in Swansea is sector lead in secondary school. Band 1 school, lead practitioner school. The head there, good friend of mine, Ryan Davis, works for the Welsh Government, great guy. Fantastic school. But he was hearing about this and he came to me and said, I'm not going to be ready for these guys, am I? I said, well, no, you're not. So he said, what can we do then? So we can build on their skills when they came in. So what we did with them was some flipped learning. Does anybody know flipped learning or use flipped learning? Or? No? Okay, I'll play the video. I'll explain what it is and how it works.
This is a classroom. The teacher stands at the front, and the students watch and listen. You'll recognise this because it's probably how you were taught, and how your parents were taught before you. But there are a lot of problems with this approach to teaching. You see, not all students learn at the same speed, so some get left behind. And while some students learn better by listening, others may learn better by doing. This means that teachers can't always do the best job they can. But there is another way. The flipped classroom addresses these problems and makes learning more personal. First, the teacher makes a video that delivers the content they'd usually teach in class. Then they share it online with students who can watch it before the next lesson. This leaves the teacher free to spend class time leading activities that help students apply the knowledge. Students can rewind and re-watch a video as many times as they like and come back to class with questions for the teacher. so keeping up with the class is no longer an issue. Students can access the video at any time using mobile devices, giving them the ability to learn more independently. Instead of sitting and listening, students can spend class time applying knowledge in more practical ways. And teachers are free to spend their time working with students and giving them individual support and attention. The flipped classroom model is already making a difference to students and teachers worldwide, so get involved. Discover more at flippedinstitute.org and become part of the movement.
So how does it work? What does it do? Well, basically, the process is, and this is more secondary school than primary, although you can touch upon it in primary, like that screencast I showed you earlier. So it's building on that, sending the screencast home as homework, understanding it, and building on it back in class. So if you're using PowerPoint, Keynote, whatever, to deliver some of your lessons or your lectures, save those slides as images, drop them into Dropbox or somewhere cloud-based. You import them then into that app I talked about earlier, Explain Everything. So it's the same app. Just think about how many apps I've talked about so far. 2, that's all. QR codes Explain Everything, and a couple in the mobile phone. You make your videos, you just film yourself, and it's got to be under 10 minutes because children will switch off, obviously. Just make it 8 minutes long. Film yourself giving the key content, giving some hinge questions in there. Save it to your camera roll, upload it to YouTube or to Vimeo. You have your lesson. That then is given, that link is given to the child. They go home, they watch at their leisure for a night, for 2 days, whatever it is. Now you're assuming that they're actually going to watch it. This is an example of one, I won't play it all, but I'll give you a taste of it. This is an example of one of those videos by a colleague of mine, and again, one of our consultants, John Tate, who's based up in Durham. John, and if you Google John, Jon, on Google, obviously, and YouTube, his resources there are incredible, and that'll help you on your way. But have a quick look at this.
Hello and welcome to the next lesson.
He's using the same app as I talked about earlier, Explain Everything.
Physical education lessons. This lesson looks at
so
training
GCSE
methods as part of the fitness and training topic.
So that's his PowerPoint slide as an image.
The training method we're going to look at is
and there's John just talking over it.
And when we think about the word interval, it means breaks. And that's exactly what happens here. We do short periods of high intensity
so you get
exercise.
It. So that's 8 minutes long, and that covers all his aims and objectives in the lesson when they come back in. In there, I won't play it all, but you'll see it, he puts certain key questions, hidden questions, which he's going to start when they come back in, asking them to get the understanding. Now, what's important with this is you get some children who say, yeah, I watched it, so it was great, thanks, yeah, fab. Yeah. And they haven't watched it. So how do we know they've done it? And you'll get some who will write 25 pages of notes without any sort of structure around it. So what John uses, and what a lot of people around the world use, is the Cornell note-taking method, which basically is this.
In this video, we're going to look at effective note-taking using the popular Cornell note-taking method, which is especially important when we're taking part in flipped learning. As students, you have the responsibility to understand and process the content from the videos, and this note-taking method is very important because it lets you organise your notes.
This gives a structure, consistency, and this is what they're expected to bring back once that video's gone out. And if they haven't, does that code of conduct again?
As you move into further and higher education, there'll be a greater expectation on you to become an independent learner and to be able to take effective and organised notes both inside and outside of the classroom. The first thing we're going to do is look at how we actually organise our page and divide it into sections for ease of use. The first thing you need to do is draw 4 lines on your page, and that will enable you to split
again, this is on YouTube, if you want to
sections.
just go on it, John Tate.
The first thing we should do in any note-taking exercise
T-A-I-T.
is make sure we have a date and a title.
So you can see in the app, Explain Everything, you can do that, you can use arrows to move about and highlight things.
Series, making sure that as we look back over this over a period of time, we know exactly where the notes refer to.
Yeah, so again, I won't play it all because of time, but you get the idea. So they get that as well with the structure. So let's say we did that 2 days ago and you with the class coming back in. So John's coming back into class and he expects everybody to have those notes. So you see them in different colours and he goes on to explain why they're in different colours because key parts of what he wants them to learn are in different colours. So he brought the notes back in. Now, you know and I know, not everybody's going to bring the notes back in, do they? Some are, some aren't. And what you'll find is it may take a month, it may take 6 weeks. But the ones who don't bring it in will quickly realise, I'm useless here without these notes. And what John does, it's a bit of a walk of shame really, he positions a help desk right to the back of the class. So the child's got to get up and go and get a textbook or a sheet of paper where he's got the information to learn. Now, knowing 14 and 15-year-olds, not many are going to want to do that while everybody else on the second image there are on their phones. They've got their earphones in. They're checking what the video showed them. He sets them key tasks within that lesson. But John is free now to intervene, to facilitate, to coerce, to nudge, to push learners he needs to concentrate on, isn't he? It's excellent. It's a brilliant way of doing it. You wouldn't do this every lesson, obviously, but you would do it at key points of that term. And what it also frees John up to do is things like a live Skype then. So at the end of the lesson, because they've got time and they've got a good understanding of what they should have learnt, he'll Skype with somebody just to reinforce. So that could be, I don't know, it could be anybody, couldn't it? Local sports star, could be anybody. So it ties back into the lesson. So they took it on, and flipped learning became the norm. I won't go into this now, again because of time, but John's done a huge amount of research on this as well. And that link then, again, I'll make it available to you guys so you can have it. If you click on that link, you'll be able to, well, John's blog is there, look, Edutate, if you just Google that. He's done a huge amount of research over a year into it, and the results are quite fantastic. And this is a hard-hitting school in Durham. So who's responsible for all this? Who does it? How does it work? Well, I touched upon the e-learning manager earlier. And the company I've set up now, called Aspire2Be, we're working with a number of local authorities in Wales. We're also working with another non-UK government. We've actually on a shortlist tender for 6 schools in Mauritius, which would be lovely. So fingers crossed we win that one. But we're all about, we're not iMovie in an hour sort of guys. We're about what I've tried to explain today, cultural embedding of this. School has to change, a community has to change to embrace it and do it effectively. Relationships have to change. It can't be the lone soldier doing it, the one teacher doing it and telling everybody else what they do. It has to be universal. And that's difficult for some, but there's a way to do it. So we are doing 8-week courses around what an e-learning manager is. And we decided it comes down to 6 key areas. Staff development, increasing links to your community, e-safety, management of resources, monitoring learning and environment. And again, I won't go into those because you'll see them when you get the slides, but they're the 6 key areas we work on. Now, I also mentioned the digital leaders. They have to be at the start of this journey with you. And the process we we promote is this. So to start off, you've got to select, you've got to have some. You've got some who you know are going to be good. When they're coming towards the end of their year or whatever it is, they've got enough skills now to run the whole process. And primary school children are doing this all over Wales. So they run the application process. They do the shortlisting. They do the interviews. They decide what the designated roles are. They give the feedback to the unsuccessful pupils. They give feedback then to the e-learning manager, notifies them, report back to the staff, and then you have your rollout the following year. Some of the things I've seen will blow your mind. A school I was in Cardiff, I was helping them set this up. And they said, what we'd like, please, sir, are 2 tables with cold water and fresh fruit for the interviews. I said, what do you mean? Oh, we'd like this because that sets a nice environment. Right, okay, so we did it. And the professionalism, we worked with them on the questioning, we worked with them how they were going to do it and the skills they needed. It was incredible. So literacy skills, writing skills, research skills, how to do it, through the roof. So they do it, they do all of it, and they present, so here's your next digital leaders. Think about that relationship I said. Now, what you can then do is build up a hierarchy, and this is an important bit. So your teacher is there, okay? In Casuchu, we use 3 different tiers. We use digital wizards, digital leaders, and digital learners. And this was in every Key Stage 2 class. So you can see if I'm stuck on something I'm doing technology-based, I'm not going to go to the teacher straight away, because 1, she may not know what the answer is, but 2, I don't want to bombard the teacher. Remember those big lines just to have a teacher ready to mark books? Okay, we're waiting. So the digital wizards, you can see they are mentoring, look, 1, 2, 3 digital leaders. Digital leaders are mentoring 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 digital learners. The idea is that every digital learner becomes a digital leader by the end of the year, and they do. Now that's a simple thing, which, let's be honest, in society, that's what we do, don't we? If we're stuck on something, we don't ask our boss. We don't go and ask, as a teacher, we wouldn't ask the head teacher, what do? We ask a colleague, wouldn't we? That's what they do. They ask a peer. It's peer-to-peer support. And it works, and they feel comfortable in it. And these guys down here may be great at art, PE, maths, literacy, whatever. I guarantee you, if one of these is stuck, they go and ask them. It's building up that peer-to-peer support. And when you go to secondary school, I've seen wonderful systems in secondary schools. I work with St David's College in Cardiff, where they set this up. And they did, we worked on a digibar. So it's a room, basically. Lecturers had to apply to become digital leaders and students. And we hit 6 key departments, and we put 2 digital leaders under each one. The other lecturers then they use Moodle, so they set up a page on Moodle whereby the lecturers could email the digital leaders, the pupils, the students, and say, I need some help on blogging, or I need some help on QR codes. They'd email them back a time and a slot. They'd meet them and teach them. So those lecturers were empowered. The lecture digital leaders would teach them more. The pupil-to-pupil support, and it was just pervasive. It's a wonderful environment. Very quickly, these are my digital leaders, or were my digital leaders in Carswell. These are my wizards. These ones on the left and the right. I'll just play you the first video quickly to give you, I'm not sure if the sound's very good, we'll give it a go.
Hello, I'm Ella. Hello, I'm Molly B. Hello, I'm Molly A. Hello, I'm Eden.
What is your role within Castleuch Primary School?
I'm a digital boss. I'm a digital boss. I'm a digital boss. I'm a digital leader.
What does that entail?
We have to help staff and go on conferences and stuff and help people in our class. And we do digital days here and help teachers from other schools and show them apps that we use a lot in class.
But basically what they're saying is what I've said to you, yeah? And in the next video there, I won't play that one now because of time.
What's the process of becoming a digital leader for the...
They talk about the process I've just talked about. Now, that word empowerment there is key. They do all that. The amount of publicity we had around the LIFE programme was incredible. You can see this is from last year. I was out for I was in school 1 day a week as executive head, but I ran it for 4 days a week. And it was mad. Leighton actually came on BBC News television after we proved that data and said every director of education, every chief exec needs to see this. And he actually was going to invest in it across Wales, but obviously he was otherwise disposed of in that role. And that never happened. But I talk to Leighton on a monthly basis now, and the thing with Leighton was he got it, he understood it, he realised the importance of technology within education. So publicity was fab, very fortunate and quite humbled really to pick up some international awards on the back of it. The one on the left there was the MJ Award. That was working for the council. The Municipal Journal Award. It's the highest acclaim you can have as a council to win. There was no other Welsh council shortlisted. We won the transformation through IT category. And yes, that was 2 o'clock in the morning after a very celebratory night. This one here, that's Will Evans, my Cabinet Member for Education. This was an international e-learning award we picked up in the Dorchester in London. We were amazed we were shortlisted. We were up against Sony, Vodafone, EE, the British Resuscitation Society and the Education Services of Australia. And we thought, well, it's a nice night out, some free champagne, some nice food, it'd be lovely. So when we got there, we didn't realise there was a bronze, silver and gold award. So the Education Services of Australia won the bronze. And we thought, well, we're not going to have a sniff here, are we? And we actually won the silver. And they said we'd actually, through IT, transformed communities and lives, not just raised attainment, which we'd obviously done. The British Resuscitation Society won the gold. And if you get a chance to download their app, it's a free app. And basically, if somebody collapses in front, if you open the app up and you save your life. It's that simple. And they proved they'd saved something like 75 lives across the world. So I couldn't really compete with that. I tried, but I couldn't really compete with that. So that's my new entity now. Wales' new ed tech company called Aspire2Be. My contact details are there. I am on Twitter, Simon Pridham 123. My account is open, so happy to help anybody at all, whether through the company or just through Twitter. Anything from today you want a further conversation or pick up, please contact me. And shameless plug to end, I've got a book coming out called Freaked Out. And that's for the bewildered teacher's guide to digital learners. Everything I've touched upon today is in there basically. It's out in September, you can pre-order it. Email address is there, Twitter account of the book. That's the first interactive paper book out on the market. So some of the things I've talked about today are in there. So it teaches you the basics to start, how to turn an iPad on. But then it takes you chapter 2, chapter 3 to download certain apps. And then there's QR codes, there's images to scan, takes you to interviews, takes you to screencasts, takes you to tutorials, takes you to everything. And it was blinking hard to write, but it's there. So that's me. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you took some inspiration from it and some ideas. By all means, like I say, get in touch if I can help any further. Have a lovely weekend and thank you very much. Cheers.